lives transformed and hearts healed for his honor and his glory. Matthew chapter 14, verses 34 is a verse that has a message in itself. It reads as follows: "And when they had crossed over, they came to the land at Gennesaret." These words are few, but they have a history to them. This is a transitional verse that takes the reader from one point to another. It describes a process, the process in which the disciples crossed over the water and reached their destination. Anyone who plans a trip understands the reward that is felt when one reaches their destination. And today I want to look at a portion of Scripture and consider what happens along the way. When we read the words of Matthew, we understand that there was a journey. But if you were to start there, we would miss so much about the crossing over experience. If you had ever followed somebody on social media who shares posts about their trips, you would more than likely never see the low moments of the journey. We rarely capture the madness that may have happened on their journey. Difficult times are rarely recorded. And to be more specific, uncertain times are those that we would often like to be erased. It is in these times that the timeline often goes silent. Not everyone is quick to share the things, everything, the detail that comes along the way. If they are challenging or difficult, we like to put those away or hide them. Or sometimes these moments are simply missed just by the circumstances surrounding the situation. You see, I remember following my son's team and my son on social media when he would be in wrestling tournaments. And there would be times when postings would go up with his name. And then at times it would go silent. His name and match results would be posted for the first match, and then updates would come regularly. And then it was as if he dropped off the face of the earth. Hours would go by, and we would not see any updates. And we would know that the next round had already had to have started. And then finally you would see a post with an update to his match. And then the house would erupt with excitement or with an expression of, "It's okay, next time, good job. You'll get it next time," depending on the results that were reported out. If it was an exciting result, or if it showed that he advanced to the semifinals or to the finals even, we would be like, "That's right. Good job. Get it done." I'm lying. I would be all over the house like, "Get your son. Good job. That's the way you do it. Make your name. Put your mark." Sorry, that's just the competitive side of me. But here's the takeaway from all that I say. We rejoice at the results, but we may have missed all the adversity that he had to go through to get to that point in the tournament. How he may have had to battle back through 3 more single elimination matches to make it to that place. The same can be told for Matthew chapter 14, verses 34, as a standalone verse. "And when they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret." This in itself does not tell us all that was experienced as they were trying to cross over. It is a post or it's a headliner, but it does not tell the full story. The other Gospels do not give some of the specifics as to the events that took place in this passage we will look at today. Mark chapter 6 and John chapter 6 don't give the exact details that we find in Matthew chapter 14, and then vice versa. There are things we understand from John and from Mark about the journey that we quite don't get in Matthew. All the events are given from the author's perspectives. Today we will uncover some truths from the crossing over experience that are applicable for our lives today. We're going to look at 3 things today. We're going to talk about the cry. Then we're going to talk about the promise. And then we're going to talk about the other side. We'll take a look at the events that lead up to Matthew chapter 14, verses 34. So let's get started. Matthew 14, verses 20 through to 33 read as follows. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boats and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, it is a ghost. And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take heart, it is I, do not be afraid. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. He said, come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat were worshiping him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. You see, when God says go, or when you give your life to God, sometimes it's not easy to get to the other side. The other side represents a place that we would long to get to. For some new to God today, it could be a growing or a developing relationship and a new life in this faith. And for some, it could be a new experience in God. For others, it could be a place that you are trusting God to take you. But for all today, it can be a desired destination that we all need to get to. We can get started at first if we can see the other side. But sometimes you can't get there. You can see it, but you just can't get there. It's just not that easy. The circumstances around us, may limit our view of where God is taking us. We can start out with God, and then something could happen along the way, and we are not that certain anymore that God is with us. We can even get confused and begin to doubt that we will even make it to the other side. I know the Word of God is filled with promises. Believe me, I know it. And the Scriptures instruct us on how we are to live by faith. Promises to hold on to. Like Hebrews 13:5. God will never leave you or forsake you. And Romans 8:38-39, nothing can separate us from the love of God. But if you are like me, sometimes it gets difficult on this journey with just a simple promise. We don't want to take any risk. It's hard for us to take a risk. Holding on to a word or a promise is not that easy. Yeah, God, I know you're going to be there with me, but sometimes I can't see you on this journey, God, and it gets difficult for me to believe in you and to know that I'm going to make it to the other side. We don't want to take risks. Sometimes when I'm in the middle of a mess, I need more than just a promise. I need more than just a promise that I know I'm going to make it through. I'm in need of a guarantee, God. I need you to guarantee me, Lord, that I'm going to make it to the other side. The disciples had just been with Jesus and seen miracles. The feeding of the 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves. Things were going well. Then Jesus tells Peter and the disciples to get into the boat and head to the other side, and he would catch up with them later. Jesus stayed back so he can go and pray. And as Jesus prayed, the disciples were out on the water. And something took place. John chapter 6 records it like this. Verses 19. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boats, and they were frightened. Mark chapter 6, 48 records it and lets us know that it was about the 4th watch. Commentary, critical and explanatory of the whole Bible, states it like this. And he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary to them, putting forth all their strength to buffet the waves and bear on against a headwind, but to little to no effect. He saw this from his mountaintop. And through the darkness of the night, for his heart was with them all. Yet would he not go to their relief till his own time came. And about the 4th watch of the night, the Jews who used to divide the night into 3 watches, later adopted the Roman division into 4 watches, as here in the scripture, so that at a rate of 3 hours to each, the 4th watch from about 6 p.m., it would now be about 3 o'clock in the morning. So when they had rowed about 25 or 30 furlongs, which was about 3 or 4 miles, so that in 8 or 9 hours, they had only made some 3.5 miles. By this time, therefore, they must have been in a state of exhaustion and despondency and bordering on despair. And now at length, having tried them long enough, have you ever been on a journey and it seems like you just can't get to your destination? Have you ever been on a journey with God, rowing and rowing and rowing, and it just feels like you're getting nowhere? God may have given you a promise that he would not leave you or forsake you, but you're out on the water for some time now, and you're getting nowhere. For some, it may be hours or days or months and years. And you've been out on the water and you're trying to get there. God knows you're trying to get there, and you can see the other side. Land is visible. I know where I got to go. You know, there is more. There is more, and it is going to get better. You know it in your heart. You know it in your spirit. And the wind and the crashing waves that are beating are going to stop you if I can just get to the other side. If that is you today, I want to introduce you to the cry. Today I want to ask the question, when in the middle of your journey and you are uncertain that he is with you, where is your cry? When in the middle of a desolate place and you feel like you're all alone and God may not be with you, and that's how you feel, I want to ask you the question, where is your cry? The disciples had been on a boat, and they had cried out, "It is a ghost!" Peter was the only one here that is recorded to have spoken up. He let out the real feelings and emotions that may have ran through him. Uncertainty was exposed and their faith was questioned. If it is you, has anyone ever asked God a question? Has anyone ever questioned if God is really with you? Am I the only one here today that has had to ask the question, God, are you with me? I can see where I need to go, but right now I'm a little mixed up. My vision is blurry. The storm and the winds are beating against me, and I'm not just that certain that you're going to be there with me. But Peter has. And Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. King James Version says, bid me to come. Bid me to come if it is you, Jesus. And then Jesus responds, okay, I'll command you to come. You see, when I call your name, you're going to come, all right, not by way of a boat, but you're going to come walking on water. You're going to come by way of a miracle. Today, Jesus is here today, and he's calling us to cross over to the other side. But you're going to have to continue to trust him all the way through the storm, all the way. Not once he affirms us, but continue to trust him and take a step of faith and cross over the water. Sometimes you can see his hand working on your behalf, but that's not good enough. Like Peter, who said, if it is you, call me, command me to come, and I will come. It's not good enough sometimes just to know that he would be there. It's so foggy and uncertain right now. A matter of fact, I may not even believe that it's you. You got to do something more for me, Peter says. While the other disciples sat there and cried out, afraid, Peter was the only one that jumped up and said, no. Jesus, you got to make it clear to me that you're right here in the middle of the storm with me. Call my name, command me, because when you call me, I know everything's going to be all right. But on the contrary, and quite frankly, we don't cry out. We are obedient to the will of God, and we have to have faith. Nothing should get in the way of that. But I need to know today, if there's real people in this house, if there's real people in this house that are with me that can attest that I'm not the only one that has had feelings inside of doubt or despair, but secretly bury them like the disciples did on the boats. Secretly bury them. I don't know what their conversations were. They could have started out with, did you see the way he multiplied all that bread? And the fish, he fed so many. Did you see that all that he did as the journey began? Did you see how there was some left over? Did you see that? And man, that's how God does it. Can't wait to see what's ahead when we get to the other side. But oh no. And then the wind starts to blow and the waves start raging and the roaring of the sea begins to kick in, and there goes fear, and everything we talk about, all the goodness of God, begins to change. And the same thing could happen for us. This is when we could be stuck out on the water getting nowhere, or making little progress, rowing and rowing and rowing. And the winds and the storms begin to beat on us, and we can't see as clear as we did when we left the shore. Even the disciples questioned if it was Jesus that was walking on the water toward them. The first reaction was to cry out in fear, "It is a ghost!" But then Peter, after hearing Jesus, you see, Jesus said, "Be not afraid, it is I." But then Peter responds after that, after hearing Jesus, speaks out and poses a very real question. And the Bible doesn't say this, but this is just me wondering if Peter had internal thoughts like, "Your voice sounds familiar. I think it's you. I'm not sure. My fellow brothers, they think you're a ghost. They don't even recognize you. Your voice sounds familiar. It kind of looks like you. I think you're I think that is you." And I know when I have been in my toughest fights, situations where I needed God to direct me, I have had a tendency to question things on the inside and rarely voice how I really feel. Am I the only one today? Am I the only one today that has these feelings on the inside, and you can say to yourself, it looks like you, God. I know it kind of sounds like you. I think that's your voice. I think it's you. Could it really be you? It's been so long now. We've been out at sea, and we've been rowing, and we've been rowing, and we've been rowing. And I've been wondering if you're ever going to show up. I'm so confused right now, beaten by the storm. So confused that I can't even see my way clear to the other side. You see, we don't let out the cry of the uncertainty as the disciples did. But Peter gives us the real deal. He tells us exactly how it is. He says, God, you got to give me something that I can hold on to. I need to hear your voice. You got to give me something that's familiar. A matter of fact, take control of this situation and command me. Tell me, direct me. Let me know that I'm going to be okay if you would just call my name. Call my name. I need to be guaranteed, Peter says. It's been too long and I've been out on the water and I'm not getting anywhere. Is this ever going to end? You see, Peter understood the authority that Jesus had over the situation. If it is you, then command me to come. I'm in the boat and this trip is filled with uncertainty. But if you command me, God, I'm in this boat. It seems like I can't get nowhere. I don't know what's going on around me. I can't even see straight right now. But if you would just command me, if you would just say the word, I know you're there. It will reassure me of your faithfulness. So let it out. Jesus, I need you to call me so I can have certainty in this time of uncertainty. I don't know if you've remembered or ever experienced times as a child when you were scared. And it may have been a very dangerous situation. But when mama or daddy would come home, or when mama or daddy would call out your name, that call, Patrick, Peter, James, it commanded your attention. And right there, you knew everything was going to be okay. Well, today I want to tell you that Daddy Jesus is calling your name. He's here today, and he wants you to know that there's certainty in your times of uncertainty. Come. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And for some, we may be on a journey today. Some may be uncertain as to what is happening around them. So many uncertainties in this world today. Things that can make us doubt that God is even with us. Or even fear that we will not reach the other side to refuge or safety. And I want to ask the question today. What is standing in the way of your miracle today? If you're on this boat and you're rowing and you're rowing and you're rowing and you just can't seem to get there, what's standing in the way of your miracle today? What is it that's standing in the way from you getting anywhere, from you getting to your destination? What has got in front of you? Is it the wind? Is it the sea? Have you been going and you're just not getting nowhere? And you've been out at sea and it's the fourth watch and it's 3 a.m. and you're only halfway there and you got a whole lot to go. What's standing in the way of your miracle today? I want to tell you that Jesus is telling you, come, and you'll walk on water and you'll get to the other side if you will just be obedient to his call. You're going to have to continue to trust him to cross over the water. And oh, by the way, we read the story, and there was a time when Peter began to doubt again. So just so you know, when you start to get distracted or overwhelmed again by the journey, Jesus will reach out and pick you up again. Mark exposes the faithfulness of God in case you forget, in case I forget, even when we think he's not with us. Let me remind you of the promise. All along, Jesus intended to pass by them. He intended to be with them when they crossed over. I have been with you all the time. I told you, Patrick, I would be with you, but you needed more than a promise. So I had to stop as I was heading to the other side. And you, in the middle of the storm, were so distracted, afraid and uncertain about all that was going on, that you couldn't even recognize me as I was passing by to the other side. Mark 6 records it like this, verses 46 through 50. And after he had taken leave of them, speaking of Jesus, he went up to the mountain to pray. And when evening came, the boat was out on sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully. For the wind was contrary, for the wind was against them. Did you catch that? And he saw that they were making headway painfully. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. And he meant to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out. For they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, don't be afraid." He doesn't send us out on the waters for nothing. He doesn't send us on our destination to make it to the other side. He wants us to trust him. Trust him when it's good and trust him when it's bad. Trust him when the winds blow. And you may not know how or when you'll make it to the other side, but I want to tell you there's something greater that awaits you on the other side. There's something greater that awaits you on the other side. If you've been stuck, if you've been in the middle, if you've been out at sea, Jesus is calling you to come. To come. Take that step of faith and keep walking. Yes, he is with you. It's his voice that you hear. You see, the other side, that is where transition to the next part of the journey took place. And this is where we pick up after the opening verse. So I'm going to ask us to stand here. You see, here at Fountain of Truth, I believe it. I believe that God is up to something. If you have been out on the boat for a while now, it's time to cross over. There's more work to be done on the other side. There is more work to be done. For those who may not be in a storm today, and you may be sailing along and you're making headway, keep rowing, because we need you. Your trip will have its own faith moments, I'm sure. Keep crossing over to the other side. We're all going to make it there soon. It's on the other side where there is more miracles, more to be done. You see, your gifts and your talents, your stories and your faith moments of when God has delivered you are needed more than ever. They're needed more than ever today. There is so much to do. On the other side is where people were bringing the sick on beds to be healed. It was on the other side where people had so much faith in Jesus that the crowds were so great, and they had determined in themselves that if they could just touch the hem of his garments, they would be healed. It was on the other side where that took place. Today, I want to tell you that he's passing by on his way to the other side. And if you need to know that he is with you, then come up here with me and let's cry out to God and ask him to call you. Ask him to command you. Ask him to say your name. Ask him to call you. Say, give me that assurance today, God, that you are with me. And if you need to know that he is with you, I want you to know, I'm sure, I am confident today that his response will be, come, come, cross over to the other side. I don't know what you're going through today, but if you need to take a step of faith, today is your day. Jesus is telling you, I am gonna be with you all the way through to the other side. There's more work to be done. Come, cross over to the other side.